G'day fellas, and welcome back to Dune 2. We're going to be taking a look at a game that I played a little bit earlier today. I recorded it. I didn't do commentary over the top of it just because I find it a little bit more difficult that way. So we're going to jump right in. It is min-maxing is what we're going to be focusing on here. So you can see we are going with House Harkonnen, we are selecting our 2 counselors, and we are going maximum difficulty, as is very, very standard these days. So I'll be talking through some of my decision making, so immediately going for a ranged unit as well as a melee unit, and getting a second Ornithopter. Ornithopter is going to move out and immediately looking for that spice. It's going to be so important to grab that spice and get it online as quickly as possible. It's going to be really important. Now we're just taking a look at where we are exactly on the map, and we're trying to work out where potentially we might be looking to expand. Ideally, what we're going to be doing in the early game here when we're min-maxing is looking to try and take this this city as easily as possible. So if it spawns very close to your main town, then you know it can help out with shooting. But in this position, because we've got 2 ranged units that are in here, we're going to walk all the way up to the city right here, and then we're going to open fire. That way they don't have that ability to begin shooting at us, and then we micro away our range unit just to make sure he's not the one taking damage. So we find a second spot. You can see that it's not what we're looking for. So what we're looking for now is going to be to get that extra resource for our plascrete. That's what's going to be really, really important, because we're playing as the Harkonnen, and the Harkonnen utilize their oppression ability. It's going to mean that they go off the absolute chains with that. So it basically means that you can just gain, instead of getting 50% extra, you're getting like 150% extra. So it's really important. And immediately dropping down the refinery and getting in both a ranged and a melee militia, also getting in our local dialects studies as well as our first level of the economic. And you can see we are moving all over the map. There's quite a lot going on at the moment, but we're just basically looking immediately adjacent to us. What is there that we're going to take? So next up, instead of heading up towards that northern position, which is a little bit of a mistake, I should be going up to that northern position before coming down to Ubsud. But you can see here, I'm just looking at it. I'm like, well, it gives me a bit more hegemony. Hegemony. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that, but yeah, this is a bit of an error on my part. But I figure, you know what, I'm going to be taking both of these very, very early in the game. The one thing is that you're going to have to be dropping down a water building at some point in the early game. It's going to have to be one of your first 3 or 4 buildings if you're going to be looking to capture a 3rd city, which you are going to be looking to do. And so when it comes to where you place that, typically when you're playing the Harkonnen, the way that you want to be playing it is you want to be stacking up all of your resource production buildings on the same tiles. So what does that mean? That means your military or your manpower, as well as your plascrete, as well as your resource, whether that's Solaris or whether that is your harvesters. That is it. And you want to be stacking those up, because when you are doing that, you're going to be gathering up a lot more resources through oppression. Oppression is the main way that you're going to be playing with this faction. And as an example, if you are on, let's say that you include batteries, or you include water in that, then you're going to be gaining a short-term, increase in water or in your batteries, but at the end of the day, it doesn't actually do much for you, because all of a sudden, once that oppression is finished, well, you just go back to normal, and all of a sudden you're back down to that low battery threshold. That's why if you've got manpower, if you've got plascrete, if you've got Solaris, those things are actually going to stick with you after you've earned them. So it's really important to make sure that you stack them up. That way you can maximize the amount of benefit that you're going to be getting from that. But we can see now, so I'm looking to continue expanding here, dropping down the plascrete here, and just throwing out my expansions. At this stage, I'm just trying to continue scouting out the map, and you can see my units are going to be coming up towards this 3rd position here. So I'm now looking to get, so this is going to be a temporary well that we're going to be putting down. So this is something that I do quite commonly in the early game. If I've got no good tiles for my early stage water, I'll just throw it away on just a random tile, because at the end of the day, you are going to look to rebuild it somewhere else, and you do lose a fair bit of time. A bit of a mistake coming in here. So I didn't actually get my militia in immediately. So normally what you should do when you take your 2nd city, pause the game, immediately get militia, because the AI will send a raid at you straight away. And if you don't have that militia out, you can see now everything gets frozen, because all of a sudden there is a single unit standing there. And so now, when I should have my well under construction, I don't actually have it. So now we're stacking up that recruitment office, going to be going down here, going to be getting that extra manpower. So we're basically getting triple production here, and keep in mind we're going to be able to throw down a little bit of an early oppression. Oppression is the name of the game when you're playing the Harkonnen in the early stages of the game. Obviously, you don't want to do it too early. There is a very important timing, but essentially what you can do is or what I've been doing recently is actually been rushing for a lot of manpower and really just focusing heavily on manpower, and then also using that, oppressing the manpower building so that they are producing more men, and then using those men that it produces to subsequently oppress the others. So it's a beautiful cycle. You know, there is just oppression going around absolutely everywhere. Everyone's happy, at least, you know, they're happy. According to the internal records. A little bit of a micro mistake there. I don't know why, but the gunner always seems to be in front of the melee unit. No, I would just advise, don't even bother grouping them together. It's terrible. For some reason, it thinks that it's like the tank, and it will just always be the one on the front. Here we're just doing a little bit of micro, just making sure that we're in underneath the city. Just want to avoid any worms, because we're playing on that higher difficulty. Those worms, they are relentless. You've really got to watch out for them. So we're going to be capturing up this third city. We're just waiting on that well. It is coming through now, and you can see that we're missing a little bit of water, but we do have all the authority that we need. So now I'm going to continue stocking up on our militia. You can see we've got the 3 buildings in there, so we're absolutely happy. And up on this tile, it's also going to be a tile that we look to do it. So as soon as I hear that sound go off, I immediately just pause the game. As soon as I hear the earthworm sound go off, just straight away pause the game and make sure I'm getting my harvester back, because we are min-maxing. Of course, you do lose 5% when you've got it on auto pickup, which isn't a big part, or which isn't a huge amount. But when you combine the fact that you might be oppressing that, then it's not really 5%. It's actually 15%, and that's a huge amount of resources that you could be, you could be gathering that you're missing out on. And so, you know, if you fancy yourself, it can be a little bit tough sometimes. Once you start getting to like 2 or 3 extractors, I think it's probably a good idea to just put them on auto, just because it's not worth losing them. Because once you've got a crew of like 3 or 4 people inside, or it's like 200 manpower, and that's a lot of manpower to lose. So as soon as the earthworm hits, we're going to empower, we're going to oppress straight away, because we know that we're going to be a-okay. We know that we're not going to be interrupted. So straight away you can see we are oppressing, and now we've got all of our 3 main resources, Solaris, as well as the Plascrete, as well as manpower, are all going absolutely insane. We've also got structured warehouses already in, so that is going to enable us to get our Solaris really rolling in. I think it's a unique building. I'm not sure exactly how. It's probably not a unique building, but essentially you get a whole bunch of gold. The tax on it is gold, and it costs gold, and as a result, it just basically pays for itself. And then once you obviously oppress it, then it's going to be pumping it out even more. So I've got 2 cities that are close by to me that I haven't even bothered researching yet, because I'm just not interested in them. Now, one of the things that you can do when you're playing the Harkonnen is actually look to be raiding your cities that are close to you. Now, there is a unique technology that you gain access to for the Harkonnen. It is available in the green tree. I can't remember exactly the name of it, but it reduces the cost of, or it makes it so that the cities that you've raided, they don't have an increased annexation cost for your raids or your pillaging. But the problem is that is not retroactive. It is only from the time that you research it that begins counting. So if you go and pillage a city 5 times and then you research the tech, it's still going to cost you that extra authority to get it. So I don't think that that's a reasonable way to play the game or to invest in, because authority, it will be an issue in the early game, but once you start getting towards that mid game, it's going to be much more difficult, especially as the Harkonnen, to find all those expansions. And now we see the processing plant going to be coming down now. We've got a really, really good spawn here, because we've got this natural wonder. At least that's how I think about it, like civilization and natural wonder, because that's going to be giving us plus 100% Solari production over there, which essentially means that you take that 30 gold that gets produced and you double it. And then you're going to double it again or triple it again, or you're just going to oppress it, and it's going to go ridiculous. I think it gets up to like 200 gold a minute, or 200 Solaris a minute. It gets absolutely wild. And so we're just continuing to expand. One of the big things that I mentioned earlier is that ideally what we're looking to do is stack up all resource generation on one tile. So what would that mean? That would mean a little bit of a misclick right there. Fortunately, I don't think we lose him. So that would mean that you are going to be looking to get your manpower, you're looking to get your Solari generation, whether that be harvesters or whether that be, you know, the gold tricklers. You can see the ones that we got there. Yeah, there you go. 197 gold coming in. That is absolutely beautiful. You love to see it in the early game. So yeah, that is good, but you just want to stack those up on the tile. Avoid having things like the batteries as well as the water there. You don't want to stack up airports as well. Ideally, you want all of those to be on their own specific tiles all stacked up together, and then you just never have to worry about empowering them and then or oppressing them, and then you never have to worry about rebellion, because you guys will see as we get on further into this game, and now that earthworm is hit, there's going to be a little bit of a cooldown on it, so we're just going to immediately oppress. Normally I go for a double oppression after an earthworm actually strikes. It can be a bit dangerous doing it, but I think even if you get like 80% of the second oppression, it's still pretty worth it. And now we're just continuing to add in more and more units at the moment. I feel like I'm going too fast for myself, and you know, this is myself earlier today. I played this game today, and I still feel like just watching myself, I'm making a lot of mistakes that normally or that you know, I wouldn't make right now. And you know, I'm confident that there's going to be more and more mistakes. We can see how beautiful is that gold, 188 gold trickling in, and so we're in a very good spot right now. We're you know, on the 10th of February at this point, so still very early in the game. We haven't expanded to our second spice field just yet. But we don't really need it, just because the resource generation that we've got going right now, we're almost at 2k hegemony, and as a result, did I pronounce that correctly? Hegemony? I'm not sure exactly what the pronunciation is on that. I'm going to assume it's hegemony, yeah, we're going to be looking to expand from our starting town or our starting location, get all those extra buildings in. So what else do you want to add on those tiles? So we talked about it before: manpower, plascrete, and your Solari generation. So the big other two that you want to fill it out with are going to be your knowledge. That's going to be really important. Another really important one in the early game is going to be your Landscrad. So getting in the blue resource. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but getting that nice and early can be a really, really big help, especially up against the I can't remember the names of them. Gosh, I'm terrible. I apologize, guys. I'll be honest. I feel like I'm almost addicted to this game recently. I don't know any of the names. I just know all the mechanics, and I've just been like trying to play it as hard and as fast as possible. I feel like I'm restarting. You know, if a game doesn't go well in the first 5 minutes, I'm just restarting. I'll go next. Just because, like, I feel like you're constantly chasing that perfect game. And this is one of those games that starts off as perfect, but you'll watch and see as it goes, as it unfolds, it becomes harder and harder to try and manage all the rebellions. Because when the rebellions hit, they hit. Now, the rebellions are only meant to be 2% a day chance. And just to give you an indication of how long a day is right now, well, we're about halfway through the day. You can see that at the top underneath 1602, 10192 AG. So that is a day, and it'll now be concluding the day right now, and now we're on 1702. So it's meant to be 2% a day, but I'm not kidding you. I've had like 5 cities all rebel at the exact same time. I'm like, bro, that's not 2%. If it's 2%, the chance of that happening, all of those rebelling at the exact same time, it's like 1 in a million. I gotta go buy a lottery ticket right now, because that I know percentages, my man. That ain't 2%. So you do have to be careful of those rebellions. But I think another interesting transition timing that often comes up for the Harkonnen is going to be transitioning into your bigger military masses. So in the late game, I don't think the Harkonnen infantry is really that strong. You're mainly going to have to be using spells to get you through it. So most importantly, you're going to be needing to use your stim packs. I can't remember the exact name of the stim packs, but it's essentially like the military drugs, and it keeps your units alive. And because your units, the tanky guys in the late game, basically the lower health they have, they get a whole bunch extra damage and a bunch of extra armor. So if you can keep them alive at low health, they're just going to be dishing out damage. So you get a whole bunch of those dudes, you drop down the stim, and then all of a sudden they don't die, and they're just dishing out damage non-stop. It's a really nice combination that works well together. But you can see at the moment we are doing very well with regard to our economy. Everything is going well, and we're just going to continue oppressing everything. That's what it's about. And you can see that we're starting to stack up these individual cities, making sure that we've got water together with the batteries, and we'll be making sure that we put airports on those as well where needed. I feel like airports, you can be a little bit generous with them. You don't necessarily have to put an airport in every city. I know some people love to do that just because it really helps out, you know, in those late game situations where, you know, you're trying your best to make sure that everything is just going to flow, and that you're not going to have too many issues with regard to, you know, the rebellions and whatnot. But I'm a bit more of thinking, you know, well, if I can probably stretch one airport between 3 cities very easily, and you know, my main base should be able to cover at least 3 cities as well. So it's only those extremities, and often I will look to take a city just to put an airport in it for an adjacent base that I don't want to have an airport in it, because it's, you know, I'm using the positions for other important stuff. And now you can see we're getting through to our 5th tier. I was going to go for a fuel cells here, not going to be the case. I'm going to go for the research hub. So I've got 5 production buildings all on that single tile, and now we're going to be looking at dropping down our research centers. But you can see we are going to be looking to oppress. It is the name of the game. We are oppressing everything. That's 3 cities that we just oppressed. Now we're going to be looking to take out this little lower ground. This is going to be great for our water source. Water source can often be one of those things that's very difficult to secure, especially if you do spawn far away. I've noticed that sometimes you get very favorable spawns with regard to the central well. Sometimes you don't. But even if you can just get a hold of that nice and early, it's going to really secure up your water position. But it can be very hard to hold onto, just because the AI, especially on insane difficulty, very, very strong. So now we have the recruitment center coming in, and this is part of the idea. Now you can see we're actually sitting at 450 manpower at this point. So we could literally just empower, or we could oppress our units or our cities quite literally for the next, who knows, like probably the next 5 or 6 minutes. And I think that's exactly what we're going to do. I think I realized that here. I'm like, well, hold on a minute, I can just oppress everybody. And so that's exactly what I'm going for. So going to be looking to oppress, going to be looking to take everybody out, and we can see an earthworm going to be coming in. I think we haven't actually oppressed that city, so we're fine. But now our first rebellion going to begin. So we're just going to be heading up there. We've got no airport up there, but that is not an issue. You can see it's just walking distance, so we're going to be fine. And you really got to weigh it up. Like if your city is working at twice the pace, and you know it's out of action for a minute, and it's been oppressed for, like, you know, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, then it's not a big price to pay. You know, it's like that classic argument: should I bother paying for a ticket on the train, or should I just risk it, and then, you know, eventually I will get a fine? But if I get, you know, 4 fines a year, then technically I'm still going to come out ahead if I don't pay for a ticket on the train. Because that is an actual discussion that happens in Australia with the trams. So that is like an actual thing, and I feel like it's the same case here. It's very much that discussion. But now you can see we've got that city on the lower ground. We're going to be looking to get some water down there. It's got 100% water, so always look to try and maximize any bonuses that you've got like that, just because it's going to help you out a huge amount, especially with regard to oppressing. Because as an example, let's say you're collecting 6 water, and you oppress that goes up to 18 water. Okay, but if you're collecting 12 water, then when you oppress that's going up to 36 water. So it's a massive difference between those two. And as a result, it just means that you always really want to try and min-max when you're playing the Harkonnen as a faction. But now going to be adding on a 5th building here. I think, yeah, we're just going to go for a maintenance center, it looks like here. Game gets a little bit laggy when you try and drop down the buildings. I don't know if that's because I play on 4K. And you can see I'm always running at about 60 FPS. But yeah, it seems to get a bit laggy when I try and drop down buildings. I'm not sure. Obviously, it's early access, so it's just going to be natural that happens. But yeah, we're going to continue expanding. So now going to be working our way on the defense tree. Going to be going down a call to arms soon, and because it's really important that we look to transition into that, and try and get out our beastie dudes. I don't know exactly what they're called. Once again, I apologize. So we've got the requirement to go and get our next spice field. So we're only sitting on 1 spice field right now. We're in the 3rd month, the first week of the 3rd month, and we're still sitting on 1 spice field. But you can see our economy is just such a powerhouse at this point. We don't even really need to think about spice at the moment. And obviously with the Harkonnen, the fact that you are on 1 spice field, you know, realistically, it's kind of like 3 spice fields because you're oppressing it. And then obviously when you take the second one, then all of a sudden you're up to 6. So things get very crazy very quickly. But now, once again, continuing to stack up over on this, you can see that we've got triple threat over on that. But going to be moving out towards that spice field. We want to make sure that we look to secure it sooner rather than later, just because that timer is starting to run out. You can see it's about a third of the way left to go. Dropping down our final buildings as well, and just trying to min-max the hell out of it. Yeah, I mean, up until this point, I mean, I could talk you guys through the rest of it, and I'm sure you guys wouldn't mind, but I don't know how much more insight I can really provide. We can see a little earthworm just doing its thing over there. I'm actually maxed out right now with regard to my population. You can see I'm sitting at 500, and I did actually go for the manpower add-on at the town hall first. So I don't necessarily think that's a mistake. I just think the mistake I'm making is I'm not I'm not oppressing enough, which sounds kind of funny, but like, to be honest, you should genuinely be oppressing 100% of the time when you're playing the Harkonnen. With the exception of your spice fields, you only oppress twice immediately after you get earthwormed. So see right here, I've just been earthwormed. I'm going to send that bad boy back. We're actually going to be turning on the auto earthworm, or the auto gather up. One thing to note about the auto gather, it doesn't always work. So I worked this out. I actually did a little bit of testing. So if your units are in the same vicinity as your harvesters, the auto gatherer won't always be able to pick up your harvester, or like the emergency gather won't be able to pick up the harvester in time. I have literally watched it, and I've like run tests on it. I've like dragged the earthworm over, and then as soon as it comes down, it will just get eaten up. So yeah, you got to be very careful. But now we're going to start oppressing. Got to start using some of that manpower. You can see we're still adding in manpower right now, and we are in a bit of a dilly of a pickle right here because we've been caught with our pants down. So I'm just going to do my best. I'm going to try and split up my forces just so they don't all get eaten. But unfortunately, we do lose 2 to the earthworm. But I mean, at this point in time, I'm stretched very thin. I don't have airports, and I feel like at this point in the game, it's probably where I should be getting a bit more towards airports, just because the earthworms, when you've got them on the high difficulty, they are just non-stop. They are relentlessly getting you, and it always seems to strike at the same time. Like, you'll get a storm, and you will get a rebellion, and you will get an earthworm attacking your harvester, and you will get an earthworm attacking your military that will go into the rebellion, and then at the same time, a raid is happening, and then at the same time, your forwardmost position is going to get under attack by, you know, a neighbor, and it will all happen at the exact same time, and it will be like, good luck dealing with this. And so, like, you're going to lose something, and that's where it gets really hard, because you are going to lose something. It's almost impossible to handle that, because it all just, like, as soon as the rebellion starts, okay, well, there goes your gold income, you know, because, you know, maybe the rebellion was on your biggest gold producer, and so it makes it very hard. And now you can see we're dropping down that airfield, so we're stacking up the resources that aren't going to be particularly useful to an oppression. So what are we doing? We're putting the batteries together. We're putting the water together, and we're putting the airfields together. That's the way that it works. That way, we don't need to oppress it. We don't even need to think about oppressing it. The only time you would ever oppress that is if there is a water shortage, and there will be water shortages, because whenever you're giving out water to the locals, it is going to be difficult. And now, one of the things that you can do as well, you can look to oppress new bases to get the military up a little bit quicker. So that is what we're going to be doing here. So you can see we're going to be dropping down a military academy, or the recruitment center, and we're going to be oppressing it, even though we've only got 2 buildings in there, because when you oppress those bases, it's actually going to increase the speed of the buildings that get deployed there. And so it basically makes the base set up a little bit faster. We've actually got our 5th militia slot that's going to come in, so it's going to kick us up to an extra 15% production. And of course, that 15% becomes 45% production when you consider the fact that we are oppressing each of these cities. Also going to be looking at adding in some spycraft stuff. And yeah, I mean, at this point, we're sitting pretty comfy. The main concern that I've got really is going to be gold income, and as long as we just keep oppressing those big gold generators, because we're very fortunate with this spawn. Not only do we have that gold generation close, but we've also got the natural wonder, which is just going to be popping it off to the absolute moon. But now we hear that earthworm come down, immediately pausing the game. We need to locate that earthworm, and you can see that we've spotted it. So we're just going to be heading back to our base, head back to safety right now. But this is one of the things where you just got to be careful, because it might come for that harvester as well. We're going to head back out over to it, but you can see that there is a bit of a raid coming through. So I think at this point, I'm still not really 100% sure exactly what I'm doing. Obviously, you do get targeted by the AI a fair bit in this game. If you've got it on the higher difficulties, they will actually just work together to take you down, which is something that I think happened quite a fair bit in Civilization as well. When I played Northgard, I can't remember too much about the mechanics of the AI. I remember combat was one of the things that was only recently added when I was playing Northgard. I know that these devs did Northgard as well, but yeah, I remember playing Civ, and that would seem to be like you would have 3 AIs ganging up on you all the time, and it feels like it is the same here, just with regard to the votes. Like, often you will have like that Plascrete vote as an example. Like right now, I've got a Plascrete penalty being applied, a 30% period upkeep penalty being applied, that had like 450 votes. It's like, I'm sorry, but just like the Artrades guy, Artrades, whatever he is, he doesn't have 450 votes. Like, no, it's obviously just not him. I don't know if there's any way to actually see who is voting in that thing, but he's messaged me before. I'm not even kidding you. And he's been like, we saw how you recently voted. It has been noted. And like, you know, he was rhyming because he's a villain, and villains obviously they rhyme when they are talking shit. But actually, I think he's the good guy, isn't he? Aren't we the baddies? Are we the baddies? I think we might be the baddies. Shit, we can't be the baddies. We're oppressing our people. Wait, I don't think oppressing means what you think it means, Drongo. Look, all right. I digress. I've come too far. But you can see we're now trying to set ourselves up. We've got a pretty good foothold on the world, but you can actually see that all three players right now are adjacent to this. Unfortunately, we didn't get a good spawn with regard to where that city spawned. In fact, we got probably the worst possible spawn. It's quite literally on the other side. So if you want to contest it, you're going to be fighting up against, you know, neighboring cities that are going to have missile silos in it. They're also going to have, you know, reinforcements coming to that position from an airport that's outside the city, so it's going to be much easier for them. They're going to be able to like just stockpile up in that city and sit very close. Whereas for me, I will have to put an airport in that city if I want to try and take it. And I think I do put out a little bit of like a half-hearted attempt, just because, you know, at the same time, there's so much going on in my own base. I'm just trying to keep my own people down, and at the same time, I'm trying to take out other people, and it's not happening. But yeah, you can see behind this, we're just continuing to oppress, and the economy is growing big. It's growing good. The main thing that I'm just worried about is that gold income. It doesn't look particularly high, and that's kind of concerning when you think about it. Maybe we should have been looking to take this little spot down here. There would have been more. Oh, there we go. Never mind. I'm on the ball. There we go. So looking to take out more of those, going to continue expanding and looking to take that. But yeah, it's all about the income. And you can see we're maxed out once again on manpower. So anytime that I'm maxed out on manpower, it's just, you know, a time that I am not oppressing enough. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Obviously, there is a cap on it, but there's no such thing as too much manpower, honestly. It is one of those things where it's just like you're always going to need it, especially if you have multiple rebellions popping up at the same time. It's going to be so difficult for you to actually deal with it. One of the things I do want to talk about in this as well is it can be very difficult using ranged units when you've got all of the difficulty turned up to max, because you will tell your units to go and attack, you know, a city or something like that, or you know, let's say you're going against an AI. If you've got ranged units, they will be outside the protection of the city, and as a result, the earthworm will eat them 100%. So you have to be on the ball. And I've gotten to the point in the late game where I'm actually not even making ranged units, because like my attention is divided up into so many different places that I am constantly like, if I make ranged units, they will just die. And you can obviously just tell them to go into the city, but then do you even have a ranged unit, because the enemy is literally right on top of you? So it becomes pointless to have that ranged unit. So I've just been making the tanky guys in the late game. Yeah, now we're gonna start by pressing this, and you can see it's gonna come in super fast. We need a little bit more water, even though we're on 49 at the moment. We are pressing one of our water producers, so just doing that's gonna help us out a little bit. And then we're gonna continue. We're also gonna be adding in an airfield over there, I suspect. More oppression coming around now. And I mean, this is really it. As I said, this video, I'm not sure exactly how much longer it goes for. You can see it actually goes for 51 minutes, so not terrible. I'd be keen to take you guys all the way, but I guess the one thing is I'm not sure exactly how much more I can add to it. I mean, I'm just talking to you guys. We're just chilling out right now. I don't know if there's really that much insight that's coming into this. Obviously, you know, when we talk about min-maxing, we can definitely theorize about the early game, but once it gets to decision making at this point, like we're in the 4th month right now, the 6th of the 4th, it becomes a little bit more, not necessarily a bit more difficult, but a little bit more subjective about what you should or shouldn't be focusing on. I think this can often be the part of the game that people have a lot of trouble with, especially with the Harkonnen. I don't know too much about the other factions. I'll be honest with you guys. I haven't played the other factions more than like 10 minutes. But the Harkonnen, you know, there was just something that drew them to me. I don't know what it was. It definitely wasn't the it wasn't the beauty of their ruler. Surely not. He's a beautiful guy. I think I read somewhere in maybe on YouTube comments that apparently in the books, in the lore, he needed like anti-gravity pants suspenders. That's how fat he was, so that he could actually move around. He had like anti-gravity pants suspenders. I don't know if I'm like, maybe I'm butchering that or exactly what that is, but apparently that's it. And look, I like the guy, all right? He's a nice looking fella. He's a nice looking fella, all right? Leave him alone. Leave him alone, you haters. But yeah, I mean, we can move on a little bit more. But I feel like, you know, if you didn't want to watch it, you'd probably just turn it off, right? Whereas if you did want to watch it, you'd keep going. And if I stopped, you'd be like, oh, well, I was enjoying that. And so you can see we got 330 upvotes again on the Plascrete upkeep, 330 votes all coming from one guy. Like, obviously not. It's obviously coming from like multiple people. I don't know how much of a threat I am, and there's no real way to determine score. I mean, obviously hegemony is one of the ways that you can determine score, but I find against the AIs on insane difficulty, you're always going to be behind. Even like with natural, I've got two natural sites here. I've got that first one over towards the left. I've got the one close to my main base. And I'm on 3.8k, and I guarantee you I am nowhere near the max hegemony right now. And I feel like that isn't probably even a really good indicator until you get to the late game of somebody's strength, power, or potential threat. So that's something to consider. But yeah, I guess that's always going to be the way it is when you're on those higher difficulties. It's always going to be, you're always going to be the central focus. You can see the stockpile starting to run a little bit low. I think it's at this point where I actually forget to switch over the stockpile. So I had so much in the bank, so much spice in the bank that I had it down at 0%. But yeah, you can see that might be a bit of a consequence now. More sandworms are getting detected. And yeah, we'll continue on. We're up to 4.4k hegemony at the moment, so not too bad. Almost at that 5k threshold, and that's when it starts getting serious because we are going to be oppressing out the wazoo. Continuing to add in more infrastructure as well. And yeah, from here, so it looks like we've got our call to arms, which means that we're going to be able to get our big beefy boys in, and that's what we're going to be doing. Our house guards are going to be coming in. So I like these guys. These work well with combat drugs. There you go. So you see me researching it, as well as supply drop. So the idea is that we're going to be having combat drugs that get thrown down, and that's going to be preventing them from dying. And then at their lower health, it's actually going to make it so that they're dishing out a whole lot of damage. Now, whether that actually works in practice, I'm not too sure. So, you know, that is a different matter. Here, just continuing to fill out the militia. It's important not to go for the expensive militia unless your buildings are on the actual front lines. So only if you're expanding towards somebody and you spot them, I think that guy gets picked off. Yeah, he got. Look, did you see that? Did you see that? This guy literally got picked off. I didn't even get a chance to move him. I didn't get a chance to react. I'm glad that I remembered that. Did you see that? That's what I'm talking about. Like when it comes to on the high difficulty, your army will literally just get eaten in the blink of an eye. I'm not sure if you guys saw that sandworm. That sandworm, my dude literally collected a little quest, and then I moved him back towards the main town center. Boom, fucking eaten like a schnob. Yeah, now I mean we're still not really dealing with rebellions, right? Like this is the first rebellion that's come up in a long time. But when they come, it will be all of them together. I don't know how the game works, and as I mentioned, they kind of throw all of the issues at you at the same time. And you can see that we're starting to fall behind, even just from like a single rebellion. Like just to keep ourselves ahead, we almost have to just be oppressing ourselves all the time. And now you can see those numbers finally going to start turning up and looking a little bit healthier, a little bit better. Yeah, that's really what's going to trigger it. Ideally, we need to start investing a little bit more into our harvesters. I think we're getting the third space for them at the moment. You can see they're only sitting at 2 at the moment, but yeah, but we will be working to continue the grind, and that guy's going to get picked up straight away. I don't think I'm trying to think where the third field of spice is, but not really. I don't think it's an option. Because I think it might be a bit too far away. I think it's up towards the north. I didn't get the best spawns here with regard to my tertiary spice. And here I go for a bit of a half-hearted attack. So I've got like, I spot the warrior here and I'm like, okay, I can take out the warrior and then I'll take out the second warrior. But then obviously I forget that he's probably just got units in stealth right there. And indeed, he does have units in stealth that are about to reveal themselves, and there they are. And so now I realize, oh, I'm in a bit of trouble. This guy's probably going to get eaten again by a sandworm, so he's going to run back to base. We've managed to chase him off. I think we're just going to throw away those units, but this is where it starts to get in trouble. You can see we've got a lot of red numbers at the top, and you never want to have those red numbers. That's where it's really going to be difficult for you. And now, here it begins. This is where the struggle begins. All those sounds that you hear are bases that are slowly being killed, rebellions that need to be need to be treaded down. But the problem is that you start to get overwhelmed. You can see all those notifications at the top. You know, where do you draw the attention? This is what I was saying about like the whole 2%, because it tells you that when you're oppressing somebody, that there is a 2% chance a day after you finish oppressing that there is going to be an uprising. And the uprising, they all seem to hit at the exact same time. So I'm pretty confident that it might be 2% like overall, but in reality, it's like maybe it's like what's the word where it starts off below 2%, but the longer that you go without a rebellion, the higher the number begins to get. I think that might actually be the case, and then that would make sense why you start to see rebellions at the exact same time all the time, or at least for me, because I'm quite literally telling everybody at the same time, like I'm doing a big round. I'm like, okay, oppress, and then you will see rebellion all coming up, as we've got here the double rebellion that is coming up, and you can hear more rebellions happening as we're trying to do this. So don't be afraid in the late game to pause as well. That's something that I regularly will do. If I hear too much stuff going off, I will just pause it and try and sort that out in the meantime, or at least try my best. Because if we've got a range unit there, he's probably going to get picked off by a crawler. We've now got that technology, so we're going to be able to get an extra little slot in there for our dude. He's going to be gathering up a little bit more. And keep in mind, it really makes a big difference when you're playing the Harkonnen to have that technology where you increase your harvester's crew. Just because when you increase it, you're not just increasing it by one little dude. Technically, you're increasing it by 3 because you're going to be oppressing it, right? So it's important to consider that. And so now another... So we've just dealt with 3 uprisings in the space of what? Like a minute, 2 minutes basically. And so they've all hit at the exact same time. Actually, that would really make sense that it starts to ramp, that it starts off below 2%, but then as you go longer without an uprising, it's going to continue making its way up. Because otherwise, if it's just 2% a day, you could have like 2 uprisings immediately after each other, which actually happens all the time now that I think about it. Oh, damn. Okay, maybe it is 2% a day. I'm still on the fence about this. But you can see, ideally, when you're dealing with the uprisings, you sort of want to have a team that deal with it. So, like, the way I think about it is, like, I've got a frontline team that are going to be, helping out my expansions, and then I've got a home team that are going to be just dealing with all the uprising and dishing out, punishment until... until things are looking a little bit better on the home front. But there's another uprising that's just come down over there on the airfield. I don't actually think I realized it. See, it's not flashing at me or anything like that. I think, okay, now I've just realized it. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. There's an uprising over there. It can be hard because, like, you get the same trigger warning, right? Like, you get a trigger that's like, hey, you're under attack by the natives. And it's like, yeah, that's not really important because my... militia is going to deal with that, and I'm not even going to have to worry about it or think about it. But then that gets put in the same category as, hey, you've got an uprising. If you don't deal with it, you're going to lose the entire city, and you're going to have to rebuild it, and you're going to have to retake it, and you're going to have to wait to retake it and rebuild it. It's like there's a massive difference between those two, and yet they're treated the same. They've given the same weight, and so it can be very difficult trying to work all that out. And really just try and keep your head. But like we're pretty decent at the moment. You can see the amount of resources that we've got in the bank. Everything's looking well, but just remember, when those uprisings do come, it goes to shit very quickly. And we've got our first city that's uprising again there. And I feel like a lot of the late game for the Harkonnen is just dealing with uprisings. And it can be very difficult, very distracting, especially because all you need is like one little bit of bad RNG for like 5 or 6 uprisings to hit at the exact same time, and that's all she wrote. Like there's no coming back from that, because you lose 1 or 2 cities, and then all of a sudden the AI is pushing in on you as well, and then where do you go from there? You've just lost a whole bunch of cities. You're going to have to retake them, rebuild them. You're still dealing with the uprisings, and we can see now that city has uprisen again. So that is a very quick re-uprising right there, which sort of, I guess, discredits my previous theory that it might just be something that sort of ramps, and you can see a whole bunch of notifications coming in at the same time. We've just paused it because we've got to try and work out exactly what's happening right now. So we're going to get our militia in. We can see we've got triple uprising, I think that is. Triple uprising coming in. So we're going to have to try it. Yeah, so you can see. And now because we've got an uprising there, I do like this mechanic. Because there's an uprising, when the raiders come in from the natives, quote unquote, they're going to just stand together. And I'm going to have to fight both of them at the same time. It's like they lock hands and they're like, yeah, all right, let's do it. You can see them coming in right there. The natives just like walking in and they're like, yo, man, what up? Or I think they're the locals, sorry, not the natives. The natives are technically the yellow dudes, aren't they? But... yeah, the locals are going to be, shaking hands with my old men, my old friends, Yeah, this is where it gets a little bit harder. Because now we're going to look to deploy, and you can see we're going to be dealing with, what is that, like 7 military units? So I think fortunately we just take out the first set, and then we just move on to the second set, but we're still trying our best to deal with these uprisings. Going to be sending out, you can see we're struggling with the units, but now our economy is starting to take a hit as well. We're down to minus 86, so we're going to have to start hitting those oppression buttons. Plus 200% never looks so pretty. And now this is what I was talking about with the ranged units. You can have ranged units, but they're just really of no use because you got to get them in close. You got to really micro them quite heavily. And of course, you know, you do one little misclick, and now you got to really micro. You got to watch the aggro, all that sort of stuff. And obviously this game is 4X, but at the same time it is very RTS-esque. And we've done well to sort of make sure that we're microing intently and keeping all of our little guys safe. Yeah, still we are struggling. I feel like I'm, you know, at this point in time, like my enemies are just like expanding and they're having a great time. You know, they're working out their magic. I'm just like dealing with internal riots non-stop. And you can see at this point in the game, like it's meant to be 2% a day, but it is, to me, it feels like 20% a day. I'm not even kidding you. Like you look how long it takes for a day to go over. I'm dealing with an uprising every day. And I've only got like 6 or 7 cities, right? Like it can't be that high. Well, it can't be that low. Can it? Can it? Can it? I don't know. But now you hear another, I think, was that another uprising coming off? It is just like, it is the ever constant threat of the uprising. And obviously the militia doesn't deal with an uprising either. So you have to respond to it manually. And this is where the real late game struggle comes in. I mean, things are starting to look a little bit better. You know, you can see that we've stacked up 5k plascrete at this point, so everything is going well for us. I guess the thing is, like at this point, you're starting to think about what resources don't really have a cap. You know, what's the big one? Obviously, Solaris don't have a cap, but it can be difficult to actually max those out. You can do it through a stockpile. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty confident we actually missed our payment. You can see that we're still sitting on 8 spice. So I'm pretty confident that's going to reduce our standing in the Landsgrad. Now we're... Oh, God. Oh, God. Run. 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 There were 4 units there. Where did the third one go? Oh, there were 4. There's only 3 now. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but another uprising. All right, don't worry. We're going to deal with it. We're going to deal with this uprising. You know, I should probably, like, go back and watch this and just, like, I want to count all of the uprisings and the, you know, how often they happen every day, and then like average it out and work out the actual true percentage, because then maybe I'll actually be happy. I'll be like, oh yeah, it actually did, you know, worked out to the right amount. I guess the one thing to consider is it's like there's a percentage of uprising for, I think, 2 days immediately after. That would be difficult to calculate, but you know what? I'm sure there's a guy in chat. There's gonna be one guy in there that's like, I can do it. All right, let's see the math. Show us the math, guy, in the YouTube comments. Continuing now to try and look to expand, because remember we got to try and expand as well. That's the thing, right? Like, because everybody else is expanding, we're dealing with. You know, what is the price of growth? If the price of growth is this much internal struggle, is it really worth it? Like, should we just go it alone without oppression? And if that's the case, is there any point even playing the Harkonnen? Because, like, I love the Harkonnen. I love their playstyle. It's militaristic and at the same time economic. It also means that you've got a guaranteed militia that are always going to be able to look out for your cities, except for when they rebel. So it's like, it's a really fun civilized or faction. But to be fair, I haven't played the other ones. Maybe I'll like those ones just as much. Do you guys have any suggestions which faction you think is good? I've been thinking a little bit about the late game when it comes to, you know, playing up against other factions. The yellow guys and the blue guys, I'm not kidding you, their units are literally unkillable and they do so much damage. I don't know how to stop it. I literally have like an army of 15 units. And I just get absolutely creamed. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, I'm using my drugs. I'm using like the stim pack, everything. And I'm still getting rolled over. And I'm like, I can't work it out. I don't know what's going wrong. I don't know where I'm making mistakes. Yeah, it's absolutely wild. I think at this point, maybe a decent idea is actually replacing some of the plascrete facilities that I've got with like hegemony. And then like that way, because I'm sitting on +7 at the moment, which is basically nothing when you think about it. That could be like a lot higher. And then I guess if you were to consider if I'm stacking on top of it with oppression, then that number could very easily get up to like +70. I don't know if that's a day. I would assume that's a day. That would be a lot, right? Like, let's say I've got 2 a city and I've got 7 cities, so that's 14 a day, and then times that by 3. you're talking about 42 a day. Like that's pretty decent. That seems like it could be a strong strategy. So maybe that's the strat. Because obviously when it comes to win conditions, there's a lot of different win conditions you can go for. When I'm playing the Harkonnen, the only real strategy I go for is like a complete demolition of my enemy. Yeah, like that's essentially it. I haven't really played to many other win conditions, but obviously there is quite a few of them. But yeah, at this point, I mean, at this point, the one thing that we've struggled to do is really build up a decent bank of Solaris. And now you can see that we're actually coming in once again on our spice. So this is where I'm really making a bit of a mistake here. I'm completely ignoring the spice. Well, not ignoring the spice, but I've just forgotten about spice. I'm spending all of my, I'm trading away all of my spice to Chome or to Solaris. And it makes it hard, and I think I actually lose those units. Those guys, I accidentally sent them out there. They didn't have any tickets remaining, and so they're all going to die. You're about to see them all die. You can see it actually on the UI, and there they go. And at first I was a little bit curious. I'm like, why the hell did those guys die? Those are like my strong beastie warriors. And I'm like, what the heck? And then I realized I must have sent them out there without tickets, and that's exactly what I did. And so now going to be looking to hold off our first rebellion, but do not fret. Do not fret. There's the second one. In beautiful clockwork timing, there comes the second rebellion. It is, you know, I couldn't have predicted it better myself. Look, was that the third one? No, that's not the third one coming in, but I'm sure there will be a third one coming in very shortly. There it is. There it is. And there you go. This is what I'm talking about. Like, when it comes, it comes. And this is what is so difficult to deal with, because now, all of a sudden, you're sitting at minus 235. And keep that in mind. That is with my spice on 0%. I'm sitting at minus 278 right now. Like, I'm trying my best to deal with this, and it's like, it is very, very micro intensive. Obviously, I've made a lot of mistakes throughout this game, but at the same time, you can see how much of a struggle it is. And now I've sent a whole bunch of units up towards this northern position. You guys know exactly what's going to happen here. It's going to be the Chomper. He's going to be coming out. He's going to be saying g'day. He's going to be greeting us the good old-fashioned way. At least he should be, if I remember correctly. Yes, the Earthworm does like to come out and greet everybody. There it is. There he is. Come on, Earthworm, where are you? Ah, there you are. And you can see I paused the game straight away because I know that you do not mess with the Earthworm. He's a guy not to be messed with. But now the difficult thing is we can't make it back towards our main base to deal with the rest of them because we've got an Earthworm stuck between us and our airlift zone. And so this is the consequence of not like putting an airport in every single city. Because if you put an airport in every single city, then you don't have to worry about it. But for me, like, I need to get back towards my main base, and I'm going to do that now. Actually, I'm not sure if we survive that. We'll have to wait and see. We're making a run for it. I think we will survive it, but yeah, that's the consequence of not putting a not putting an airfield in it. And you can see here, I'm realizing. Hold on a minute, I can put my airfield all the way out here. Hell yeah! And that'll support those other cities. And that's what I was talking about a bit earlier, where you can use your airfield to support multiple cities. Yeah, I mean, I feel like at this point, right, like in the game, in the last 20 minutes, I have not moved. I've just been constantly dealing with rebellions all the time, and like, I've barely taken any ground. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, if let's go back right now. We're 47 minutes into it. Let's go back to 27 minutes. Where are we at 27 minutes? Like, we've basically got one or two extra. Yeah, we got like one. We've got this place. So you can see, like, at 47 minutes, we've basically taken 2 extra pieces of territory. And we're just trying to keep our head above water. Oh, man. It gets really, really tough. It gets really, really tough. Oh, all right. Well, we might leave it there. I'll show you the ending of where I stopped recording the video, actually, because we could talk a little bit about what happened. I'm sure you guys will want to know exactly what happened because, I mean, there's a reason we stopped recording, isn't it? You know, I'm sitting down. I've woken up at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to play some Dune Spice Wars, and I'm just going to have some fun. I'm just going to record it as I play, and, you know, if I have a good game, then maybe I can talk about it on YouTube, which is exactly what we're here doing right now. But obviously, the game comes to an end, and this is where I realize, I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, and I look at my Landsgrad standing, I'm like, oh God, what have I done? I'm on 90 Landsgrad standing. I realize, I'm like, oh God. And I'm like, I should have invested in my economy. I never invest in intelligence. Maybe I should be investing in that more. I don't know. I feel like there's nothing there that really stands out to me. I guess it's largely unexplored to be honest. And now I see I've been attacked over on this western front, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to need a little bit of space here. You can see that the units I'm sending in, right? I've got like 2 of my beefy dudes, and then I've got 4 of my DPS guys on the backside. So they're going to be coming in. We're trying to hold on for dear life. We're going to capture this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look to capture this and drop an airport down as soon as possible. And we're going to speed it up. So that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to just drop down combat drugs straight away. You can see I'm not sure exactly where to do it. So I'm going to go right there. And then I'm also... So these guys are going to survive. You can see them on the front line, and we're just dishing out damage. And of course, the earthworm comes in. So my damage is now absolutely 0 because the earthworms come in. This is part of my theory about like why ranged units are absolutely fucking trash, is because the earthworm is just constantly trying to kill you. And then we're going to drop down the healing drugs, but unfortunately it just isn't able to out-heal the damage that's coming out from our opponent. Now, obviously, we could have microed that a little bit better. We definitely could have. But now, you know, we thought that attack was going to be successful. It was not. Probably had a bit too much DPS there. I think ideally you should be looking to go for like 1 DPS, 1 tank. But I think we had 2 DPS and 4 tanks. Oh, sorry, 4 DPS and 2 tanks. And as a result, you know, we're not playing World of Warcraft here. That would be fine in World of Warcraft. It's not World of Warcraft though. It is a little bit different, and so I think you need a little bit higher of a tank ratio. Obviously, no healers are going to hurt, but you can see that it's starting to fall apart now because now that we didn't manage to equalize over on that front. If we'd equalized over there, then we would have been okay. And you can see we're pausing the game here, and we're just chilling. We're just chilling. We're waiting, and now we're going to be getting that airfield down. Instead of running all the way over here and, you know, getting eaten by a fucking earthworm because you know that shit is going to happen. It's, you know what's safer? We'll just build an airport. We'll press everybody to build it really quickly, and that'll do. And that's exactly what we do. And you can see it's coming up right now. We're about to airlift over. And I think we do save it, but at what cost? That is the question. And you can see we are making more units now out of our town center. And we're going to add in a couple more things now. So it looks like I'm adding in the spice thing, but obviously I realize, oh, there's no adjacent spice here. So maybe I'll add in maintenance center. Why not? Yeah, let's do that. That'll work because this is going to be a tile that I'm not going to be what's the word? I'm not going to be buffing it, or I'm not going to be oppressing it. And now our second oppression has come off. Now, one of the things I would just say in closing here, because you can see the video is probably going to be ending in the next minute. We're going to be ending here. So I think we do recapture this. But in closing, one of the things I have really missed in this game is an overview for managing your cities. And I think that, you know, if there are devs that are watching this and they're listening, I think that this would be something that would be very helpful. A way that I would be able to see, like over here, just a list of all my cities and scroll through them. And then that way I could see, you know, what their production is. And then I could just hit, you know, bang, oppress, bang, oppress, bang, oppress, bang, oppress, instead of going around physically and looking at them, because that makes it very difficult. And here you can see the AI being very smart. So luring away 3 of my units while he stands on the city with his range unit, intentionally not firing. And now we're about to lose that city over towards the west. And you can try and retake the city. I mean, you can retake the city, but the problem is, right, okay, let's just think about it. This city as an example. If I lose this city, what do I lose? I lose my water income. So much of my water is coming from this because there's 100% water. So now all of a sudden I've lost my water. What does it mean when I lose my water? It means that everybody else gets unrest. And because they get unrest, they're more likely to rebel. And of course, then it causes a chain reaction. And now I've got 3 cities that are all starting to rebel. I think they probably rebel because they're more likely to rebel because they don't have water. That might be it as well, but you can see now that we've got 3. There's the 4th city coming in for a bit of a rebellion as well, and now we are starting to really struggle. And this is the part of the game where I'm just like, okay, well, I've got 4 rebellions, and you can see I'm like alt tabbing at this point. The stream is about to, or the video is about to end. But that's essentially it, where I'm like, okay, so it was like a combination of being attacked over here and then just rebellions coming up nonstop. But yeah, I think like a nice little overview over on this like left hand side for you, or it doesn't even have to be on the left hand side, like just like civilization basically, you know, when you're going through your cities there, that's the same thing that I would look to do. But anyway, fellas, I hope you've enjoyed this different look at the video where we talk about min-maxing the Harkonnen faction. It's a very fun faction. I'm still trying to get my head around it, and I hope that this has been a little bit helpful to you. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.